a song for you.
You're listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I will do one episode for each song the band recorded in the studio. However, this is a fan podcast and not band endorsed. It's more of a tribute to their long history, well beyond just the hits, and my way of giving something back to a band that has given so much to me. Let's dig in! Hello and welcome to another episode of Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin. Happy Monday, you guys. I hope that you had an incredible weekend. You know, it is spring, the flowers are blooming, mosquitoes are mating. It's a good time of year. Although I have to say, I've really enjoyed the winter in Oklahoma. It's been nice kind of having weather that reminds me of home. I've lived in the desert for a couple of decades, and it's been really nice to have, like an actual autumn and have a winter again, although the winter was pretty mild compared to what I grew up to. But we're here to talk about Deep Purple and this podcast and a wonderful song, a bonus track from In Rock. And before I do that, I want to take a moment to thank my patrons from Patreon. That's what they're called. William Rose, awesome guy. Thank you very much for your support, my friend. And Corey Morissette from, here we go. And the podcast Will Rock is a great podcast. The Ultimate Catalog Clash is a great podcast. And of course, The Power of Positive Geeking. I know he's working on a couple other podcasts. I'm recording this in mid-March. I'm not sure by the time this airs if Rock Court will be available yet, but I'm hoping so because I'm really looking forward to that. So today's song, guys, I was curious about this song because while I've listened to it many times, originally found it on the Powerhouse compilation album, along with another rare song and a version of Ian Gillan singing Hush Live, and then a couple other tracks on Powerhouse. I do not have a digital copy of Powerhouse. I have the LP version, and it's got a lot of crackles in it, so I didn't think it would be a good version for us to use to dig into on this episode of the podcast. But I do have the Roger Glover remix from the 25th anniversary of Deep Purple and Rock. It is a little more low end heavy, a little bit bassier, just because the mix was a little bit thicker, and he put more low end in it, which I think was a great choice. But it is going to be a slightly different mix than the Powerhouse version. But I got curious about this song because honestly, I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I know it's a bonus track, but I don't really know anything about it other than the fact that for whatever reason, they decided not to include it on In Rock. So every once in a while, I get curious about actual reality, and I thought it'd be interesting to dig into it. And the only thing I could find was on Wikipedia, which said that apparently they tried to record it over 30 times and then just ended up not putting it on the album. Personally, I think it's a great song. I think it's got great energy. I think it's really interesting. I think the voice as an instrument is great. Again, don't really know what the song is about, and I'm okay with that because I love the song and I love the way it sounds. And again, if I look at vocals as an instrument, and for those of you, if this is your first episode listening to the show or listening to any of my shows, I'm not a big lyrics guy. I think lyrics can be important, but for me, it's more I want the vocals to make me feel what you're talking about, give me the emotion of it. And I think, honestly, I was thinking about this the other day, and I think a lot of that comes more from my work as a film composer, because back in the day, I was a lyrics guy. I did memorize every word, sang along to them, whether I really understood the meaning or not. I think I just used kind of the cop-out excuse of, oh, it's probably something British, and I don't know what he's talking about. And just let it go at that. I didn't really, care to dig that much further. If I understood the lyrics, great. If I didn't, great. But I focus more on them, whereas now I just really look at the vocals as another instrument, another sound. And it's more the notes they're playing and the way they're playing them than what those words are. So it's a little bit interesting. And I think that at least part of that perspective has grown out of my work as a film composer and someone who enjoys film music, because everything there, even the lyrical stuff, is really about supporting the visual of the movie. So anyway, the song Cry Free, couldn't find anything else about it other than the number of recording attempts. It could have been certainly, as we've talked about in previous episodes, could have been left off because of time. they had to choose one thing and not something else. Apparently, Live and Wreck was considered to be dropped from the album, but after some time, the band or management or whoever it was had listened back and said, no, I think it's a good track. And so, okay, I'm glad too, because I really like that. I really like that song, but I really like Cry Free. And the good news is, regardless of the fact that it was omitted from the actual intended album, we eventually got it. And I remember Ian Gillan talking about this in another song on Rockline, how, basically like the songs were basically decided not to be good enough, and they had no intention of playing them live. And they were only released by the whim of ex-management who still had rights. And I mean, obviously, compilation albums are typically a cash grab or a way to entice people to maybe get into a band that they are curious about but don't really want to spend money on a specific album, or maybe they only kind of want some of the hits. So it's a great way to at least kind of rope in those fans to some sort of purchase. But that's usually not a band decision. That's usually a management decision anyway. So anyway, track is Cry Free. Let's get into it. Here it is by Deep Purple. On this version, the bass drum is much heavier than normal. I really like how in that riff, Ian Pace is just playing straight on the snare drum, but he misses that last snare beat before the crash and hits a kick instead. I like that because it breaks that up a little bit and it feels more inventive. If you're just playing da 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 on the snare, it feels kind of well, I couldn't think of anything else to do, so I'm just going to repeat this. But throwing in that little change really makes it a little bit special for me. This song is I've always thought that there was a certain grit to it that I've never really been able to explain where it comes from. I mean, obviously we've got distorted guitar, distorted bass, distorted organ, and it could be a combination of that. It seems really heavy, but there's just like this extra layer of grit on the song that even as a mix engineer, I'm like, is the combination of those three instruments enough to create that? Is it clipping? Is it like, I'm not sure exactly what it is. I don't mind it. And in this version, the way that it's mixed, we're getting a little more clarity in what the instruments are playing than we do on the Powerhouse version. So I'm grateful for Roger's mix. But I've always felt that there was just something a little gritty, and it might have been a rough recording, and that might have been enough for them to go, you know what, this is just sounds a little bit too distorted or whatever to really fit into the album. And that may have been enough of a reason for them not to release it. The groove of this song is just so much fun. And, it's only 3 minutes and 23 seconds. And for me, it always goes really quickly. I always feel like I want more. It's actually one of the shorter songs from the whole In Rock sessions. And I'm just enjoying it so much. I want another section or another verse or just something to keep it going. Yes, I could just put it on again, but I want the song to be longer. And I guess that's part of why I'm, because I enjoy it so much, I'm a little perplexed as to what it for certain was that they didn't like about it enough to put on the album. But the rhythm's great. What John Lord is playing, he's being really, really just creative and playing, and it's a lot of fun to listen to him. Richie comes in with that little swell in the middle as he's known to do. And it just, like everybody's playing something that's worth listening to. The only thing, interestingly, that I'm really not hearing as much is what Roger Glover's doing. And it could just be that what he's playing is blending in a little bit more because he's maybe focusing in on a lower register. So I'm going to try and, find out what he's doing a little bit more because I'm really just not hearing it in these headphones. I'm going to have to check against the Powerhouse version and see if this is the same take, because it sounds like some of the drum fills are a little bit different. Um, I might just be misremembering it because I haven't heard it in a while and they were a little bit muddy on that version. It could just be the clarity that I'm able to hear things that I wasn't able to hear before, but it does sound like I'm hearing some drum fills in here that I wasn't hearing in there, and I can't remember what they were. So that's interesting. But yeah, the feel of the song, like, is just rushing by. We're already a minute in, and we've already been through two verses, and I just feel like the tempo's right, but man, it's just so enjoyable. I'm getting lost in it, even just trying to do a critical listen. That's just a really nice bridge as we head into the solo. I really like Ian singing in that really light, higher register, but just with that more gentle sound. It just adds another dimension to the song that I think most singers would have been tempted to sing that a little grittier, maybe do some kind of like scream or something like really guttural. And I really like that he went more gentle, kind of like in the section that we'll get to when we do Woman from Tokyo. That middle section where he sings really gently. And this is more like that. I love that he switches to that style. And then the music behind it being obviously very supportive. And then this wonderful transition going back to the main opening here as we head into the solo. Really well constructed. You see, this is such a great solo from Richie. Again, it just seems like a waste to have not released this as part of the collection, or at least as a B-side or something. But we do get it here, and I love the solo from Richie. It fits the song so well. It's so energetic. But if you want to have some fun, dial that whole thing back about 30 seconds. If your podcast player is like 10-second rewind or 30-second rewind, go back, listen to that again. But focus on John Lord. He just sounds like he's having a blast playing rhythm organ behind Richie on that. Still can't really hear Roger a lot. He just might be blending into what John Lord is playing. And then, of course, Ian Pace has got some killer fills in here. All of these fills I do remember, so this may be the same take. And it's just that the original mix was too muddy for me to hear some of the things I'm hearing now. Or it could be that my headphones are better than I'm sure they're better than what I was listening on years ago. And so I may just be hearing things with a little more clarity because of my own equipment. Very possible either way or combination thereof. But in any case, killer solo, lots of fun. I love this part that we're about to get to. But part of this too, for you drummers, I've talked a little bit about counting time with your hi-hat pedal. We're going to get that in this section here. I'm sure he's playing pedal on the hi-hat. But yeah, so drummers, pay attention to that. If you guys are interested, you can pay attention or, rewind it, listen to it again and pay attention to it. But yeah, this is a fun part coming up. The one thing that's weird here is at the end of this solo, we get almost like somebody took the tape and copied it and put that last little lick from Richie in again out of place. It felt really weird to me. That was not on the Powerhouse version. So that's something that happened somewhere along the lines during Roger's remixing. And I've always questioned that a bit. I don't know if that's something Richie played twice and they muted it when they mixed down the track for Powerhouse, or if he, for some reason, did like a digital copy of it and put it in there. But it always seemed a little bit off to me. And I actually don't like that. Part of that, again, could be the nostalgia of the way I'm used to hearing the song. I'll be perfectly fair about that, but it does seem a little bit out of place to me. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'm going to rewind it a little bit and then play it into the next part so you can hear it again. Okay, so what's interesting is the first time you couldn't hear it very well because it was back in the mix, but the second time it came in very bright and then it delayed and you could hear it a couple more times fading out. So no, that's interesting. I still think it feels awkward, especially because you couldn't hear it very well the first time, that all of a sudden now it just kind of comes in out of nowhere when Richie's not playing and then it delays again. So I don't know if that was just something that was already on tape or what, but it does definitely feel weird, and I'm glad they left that out of the original version when you're doing the remix and stuff, to say, hey, here's what we really played, and some of those things are in there. I think when Glenn did the Burn remaster, there was a thing on Cornelius Redding that he did that, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of weird. It was like another Richie delay thing. So I don't know, but in any case, it does feel very awkward to me. But the next part, though, that little breakdown right before we get into the last verse, was really cool. Love the feeling of that. Love that just kind of um, a roar of Richie's guitar there as we go in. The flurry of Ian Pace fills during that. But also, like I said, drummers, that's where you want to pay attention to counting with your foot on the hi hat, because I'm pretty sure he was doing that there. Yeah, it sounds like Roger's playing really low on the scale, so I think that's probably just blending into the muddiness of the song a little bit, and not really getting a lot of clarity. It doesn't sound like this is one of those songs where he jumped into the higher register, at least not that I noticed. But what I did notice was that last pass on the on the snare hit there, that just really great buzz roll that Ian Pace gives us to go into the final part of the song, and I love that transition. Love the vocals. They sound so great, especially just the range of notes that Ian sings, the power that he's hitting those higher notes with. Really puts an emphasis on the feeling of it. And I feel like just listening to the emotion in the vocals, I kind of feel like this is one of those songs that's about, you're frustrated, here's what's happening, here's where you're at in life, and you're not happy with it. That's what I'm getting out of it from the emotional standpoint. What the actual song's about, I'm not sure, but certainly the vocal emotion is leading me in that direction. Probably a little bit of the title too, that you just kind of want to break free from all of this. You just want to scream out and have it be over, that sort of thing. But what's not over is the song. We still got a bit left, a little over a minute, and they've already done verses, choruses, solo section, breakdown, everything, and we're only at 2 minutes and 17 seconds. So that must mean we have some soloing coming up. Let's check it out. Oh yeah, that fade out is much longer than the one on Powerhouse. And I love that we got a bit of a bigger glimpse into the song. Still didn't get to see how it ends, but that's okay because we got more than we had, and that makes me happy. Great jamming from everybody. Again, just sounds like John Lord is having so much fun. And got a little bit of Roger in this one too. I could hear where he jumped up in register. I don't know if he did that during the song. If he did, I did not catch it. I've never caught it, but certainly at the end, he's getting a little more adventurous, as I think kind of everyone is. Ian Pace came close to losing the tempo of the song a couple of times, but held it together. Really energetic drum fills, and Richie. I love that. Richie kind of starts out explosive, and then just kind of dials it back with that guitar slide and lets the organ cut through a little bit. Those staccato notes that we're getting from John that are very similar to the opening of Hush, just with that, with the style of performance and the way the organ sounds. But everybody's just kind of, exploding on fire. And, I love when Richie just runs the pick down the neck because it's keeping him involved, but also kind of making a little bit of room for other people to cut through in the middle of a solo, which is a lot of fun. But even though the guitar solo was in the forefront along with the drums, I kind of feel like it was really a solo section for everybody. Like anybody could just do whatever as long as they were staying in key. And, certainly things like that can be very risky, but that's how this band is. They always said it was dangerous on stage because they didn't just play the song. They weren't just like, okay, let's go out and play this song. We all know it. We'll play it like we know it. I mean, songs were adventurous. Songs would go on 20, 25 minutes sometimes, and lots of improv. And I feel like that's what this whole last section was, just complete improv from the band with the basic structure of what was behind the initial solo earlier in the song. And I think that's fun because you can, you're going to fade it out whenever it needs to be faded out. So it gives you the opportunity to say, you know what, let's just get crazy and throw everything we have in here. It's never going to get recorded again. So let's just have some fun. And I definitely feel like they had a lot of fun recording this. Maybe they didn't, but that's what I'm getting out of it as a listener, especially with how playful, the organ part is. Just a good old time for me. So that's my feelings on Cry Free. I hope you guys like the track. If it's one that you're not familiar with, if it's one you are familiar with, I hope that you like the track. I mean, I want everybody to like it. It's a good song. And that will do it for our episode today. We'll be back tomorrow with our final bonus track from In Rock. And that will actually conclude season 5. We have Grab Splatter coming up, which was another instrumental. And if I remember when I do that episode, I will tell you what happened when I asked Roger about it. Incidentally, when he did the remaster, Hallelujah was left off, and I found that interesting because it's the first track that he recorded with the band, and even though it was a single and not released as part of the album, I would have thought that he would have included it on the anniversary edition. And years and years and years and years and years ago, when I was in contact with Ken Hensley from Uriah Heep via email, I also had Roger Glover's address, and I exchanged a few pleasant emails with him. I had a million questions, but I wanted to be very respectful of his time. This is back in the days of AOL dial-up, pay per month on some sort of, going to Best Buy and getting your 10 hours a month for free or your 15 hours a month for free so you could stretch your internet usage back in the beginning, okay? When if you were on the internet and somebody picked up the phone, you lost your connection. Way back then. And I had asked him about this particular song. And, I'll save that for tomorrow's episode because, what the hell? I'll just tell you now because it's actually about Hallelujah anyway. So I asked him, I said, was there any reason that Hallelujah was left off of the In Rock anniversary? It seems like you would have included that since there's really nowhere else to put it, and it was, your introduction to the band. And he just completely forgot and left it off. It wasn't even a thought. So, as someone who's not involved in a project, it's really easy to look at something and go, well, yeah, you should have done this or you could have done that or whatever. When you're involved in it, you've got so many things going on, and it wasn't really part of In Rock. I mean, this was actually before the concerto. So it's completely understandable he would have not thought to put it on there. But I think chronologically, it would have been a cool addition for In Rock because that was how he started with the band. Since there wasn't going to be a 25th anniversary release of the concerto, and it would have been weird to have Hallelujah on there the way I did it with this one because there was nowhere else to put it that made sense. It would have been cool, but you know what? That's okay because there's still a great version of it out there that we can listen to. And at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. So that is our show for today. We will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you have a kick-ass Monday. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, a tour of the entire Deep Purple studio recordings. Please remember to give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell your friends. I also have a Patreon set up if you'd like to support the show. You can also write to me at smokeonthepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and thanks for listening.